Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Disney World Playlist. This is the series in which I kind of wanted to take a look at attractions and restaurants in the parks in a different light, and so I came up with this idea of putting together playlists or itineraries based around a central theme. And in the past, we've done some themes like Indiana Jones or video games or relaxation. And today, we're going to actually tackle another theme that I had listed earlier on, which is America. Of course, I am also taking suggestions from you guys, the subscribers. We're actually Christine and I are putting a list together, so we've got a bunch of great ones queued up, but today it's about America, and it's all about attractions and restaurants that remind me of America. Now, just to preface it, I tried to avoid some of the low-hanging fruit, but not all of it, and that's why our number one attraction and our first stop on the America playlist is the Hall of Presidents. I mean, it makes sense, right? You guys had to have seen that one coming. The Hall of Presidents is a whole attraction about the presidents of the United States of America. It just makes sense. You know, super famous outside of even Disney fandom. I think the Hall of Presidents is just sort of one of those cultural icons. You've got the animatronics for every one of our presidents who's ever served. Great film. I believe this is the one that is narrated by Morgan Freeman. It talks all about, you know, the role of president, and it touches upon the history of America as a nation. And it is definitely like a really super patriotic way to kick off the day. On top of that, you probably are going to have like little to no wait, because this isn't one of the most busiest of attractions here in the Magic Kingdom. And I think it's a good first stop. Now, that said, I will avoid the other hanging fruit. And I can tell you right off the bat, we're not going to be visiting the United States of America Pavilion in World Showcase in Epcot. But that is a good honorable mention because obviously, you know, America. In fact, for our second stop on this playlist, we're going to head on over to Hollywood Studios to check out the Muppet Vision 3D show. Now, if you've been on Muppet Vision 3D, it's currently closed for maintenance here on the server. You probably know why it's on my list, and that's because of Sam Eagle, the super patriotic bald eagle Muppet, who, when asked about his finale for the show, says it is a 3-hour salute to all nations, but mostly America. And I put it on this list because I think he's a funny caricature of, you know, when you have people who are just super patriotic about the country, almost to a comedic point. And I think it's just a fun show. I think it's something where if you were to think about attractions that are American themed or, you know, focus on America, this isn't really one that would pop out at you because it's just a small portion of it. But I think it is a funny enough portion of it that I think it's worth visiting. And that's why it would be my number 2 stop on this playlist. And then we'll pop on over to the Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater for lunch. I put this one on the list, not because it's my favorite. It is my favorite, so I'm sure it'll probably pop up in more lists. But this is on my list because I think this is a place to eat that very much can sum up America. I mean, like, you've got the drive-in movie theater experience, which I don't think was exclusive to the United States, but I think was one that was very iconic when it came to sort of that Norman Rockwell era of America post-World War II, you know, pre-Vietnam, where everything was all leave it to Beaver. You know, this idea of, you know, taking your car over to the drive-in and parking and having a burger and fries while watching some like really cheesy sci-fi, which, you know, again, science fiction film, not really something that is exclusive to America, but I think that 50s style sci-fi is a very classic staple of it. And I think it's interesting because you see those elements also reflected in Tomorrowland over in the Magic Kingdom, which has this very, you know, Googie style, old school Jetsons version of the future, which is something that is kind of special to America, which is kind of why when you go to Tomorrowland in Disneyland Paris, you actually don't see that style there because they didn't have that era. You know, they had more of the you know, Jules Verne, almost steampunk style version of Tomorrow, and here you've got the more Americana version, and that's why I would have lunch here on my American playlist. And then the next stop after lunch, of course, I realize this attraction's an awful choice for right after eating, but here over in Future World and Epcot, we have Mission Space. Now, this is an attraction that, personally, I'm not a huge fan of, but I think it's a great like American attraction, right? I'm not going to try and pretend that we are the sole explorers of space, or that we are, you know, the only leaders. Russia definitely played a major part in the exploration of space, and they actually have a whole bunch of firsts when it comes to space, whether it's the first person in space, first animal in space, things like that. But you know what? We landed on the moon. We're the only people who sent men on the moon. You know, NASA is such a fantastic organization, and when I think of, you know, the space travel and something like Mission Space, I think of, you know, American programs like NASA, and it just seems like super, you know, like the super gung-ho America thing to do. And, you know, you've got Gary Sinise in there, and, you know, he's Lieutenant Dan, and he's from Apollo 13, and what more can you ask for? It just has that vibe to it, I think, and that's why, even though it isn't one of my favorite attractions, it is definitely one that I would throw on my list, my America list. While the previous choice focused on the future of America with American space travel, this one sort of touches upon our past. Here in the Magic Kingdom, we have Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and I think this is a natural fit for multiple reasons. I think, for one, you've got the railroad element to it, and while that's not something that today is specifically American, especially when you think about Europe and how much they use railroads over there, I think the development of the railroad, you know, the locomotive, I mean, that was such an integral part of the development of this country, and just bridging that gap, because it's such a large landmass, and it's something that is really ingrained with the history of America. On top of that, you've got this railroad, you know, roller coaster in the Wild West, which I think is such a, again, I keep using this word, but I think it fits, this iconic piece of American history, which is, you know, going out there and developing the West and manifest destiny and all of that stuff. And I think there's just something about this, you know, you can almost put all of Frontierland right into this category of America, just because it's got that exploration and that Wild West element about it. But specifically, I think this is a great one because you just went on Mission Space, you had your thrills, you want some more thrills, and this is where you're going to get them. But you could, of course, also go to, you know, the Tom Sawyer's Island, you could do Splash Mountain. They all have that vibe to it that I think makes it fitting. So after a long day of these thrilling rides, you want to have dinner. Now, I can't actually go to the place because it hasn't been built here on MC Magic yet, but I guess I'm at the closest, which is where you can get a boat to go to the place. And I think the perfect dinner for the American vibe and the American playlist is Hoop-Dee-Doo's Musical Review. If you've never been there, it is, by the way, fantastic. You should do it. If you ever go to Disney, you have to pay a little extra because it's sort of a dinner show, but it's 100% worth it, in my opinion. Had a ton of fun going with friends. I plan to go whenever I'm down there again. The idea is it's this sort of Western musical show that they put on while you get a huge, endless buffet of food that is brought to your table. And I think it's American in so many ways, from the idea that, you know, your food's coming in buckets and it'll just keep coming until you tell them to stop because they'll just keep replacing all of the food, to the fact that the food itself is very barbecue styled, whether it's like, you know, the chicken and I think they have ribs there and corn on the cob. It's just like a super, you know, American barbecue style meal. And then you've got that show, which again, sort of touching upon Big Thunder Mountain, goes into the Wild West a bit, has that Wild West vibe to it that I think makes it feel very American, in a way that where it just sort of idolizes the past, in that sense. And I think, you know, I'd almost put this on the playlist for any Disney playlist for dinner, just because it's a great place to have dinner. So there, I would have dinner at the Hoop-Dee-Doo Musical Review, which is actually at the Fort Wilderness Campgrounds and Cabins, which is a really cool place to stay, and probably would be a cool hotel. I should work that into these playlist series. I'm just speaking out loud now. You guys are getting my brainstorms, but I should add on an element of where you should stay that fits that theme. I think that'd be pretty cool. And then finally, after the Hall of Presidents, after Muppet Vision 3D, after Mission Space, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, some lunch at the Sci-Fi Dine-In, and dinner at the Hoop-Dee-Doo Musical Review, I think the perfect way to top off this American playlist would be to head on over to Future World and Epcot and ride Soarin'. Now, why do I think Soarin' belongs on this playlist? I think it is a great visual ode to America, right? The whole premise is you're in this hang glider and you're, being swooped around America, whether it's the Grand Canyon area. It's like the Pacific Southwest, right? You've got parts of California, you've got the Grand Canyon, things like that. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful way to experience these great pieces of this country. It swoops over Disney, which in itself is very American, right? You can almost put the whole resort there, whether it's from the birth of the theme park to just, Walt Disney as a person. But I think this is a good way because it's just, it's relaxing, it's fun, it's just super, super gorgeous. You get to see it from a perspective that most people, I would say, don't get to see the country. And, it's just a good ride overall. So there you have it. That's my Americuh playlist. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Are there attractions that I forgot that you feel like belong on this playlist? Are there attractions on this playlist that you feel like don't belong? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what will go into your American playlist, or for my, non-American viewers out there, what would go into a playlist that is, centered around where you live, whether it's over in Europe or South America or wherever it is. I feel like there must be stuff in Disney that has that sort of theme behind it, or at least remind you of it. And it'd be fun to see what everybody comes up with these playlists. And if you have an idea for a playlist you'd like to see me or Christine jump on, feel free to leave that in the comments below as well. You can find me on Twitter at RobPlays. I want to thank you all for watching. Whatever you do this week, make the most of it because it makes it that much better. And I hope to see you all next time for the next Walt Disney World playlist.